Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello and welcome back to Homeschool Together. Thanks so much for joining us. If you have a chance and you're going to want to, check down into the show notes and look at all the links of all the games that we're going to be talking to. Today we are going to be talking mainly game schooling, so you might want to put away the credit cards.
Yeah.
Put away the checkbooks.
Hide your Amazon list.
Hide your Amazon list. We had Danielle Dabbs and her husband Chazz, and the third time we've had them on the podcast from Board Game Babies, world famous from Instagram.
Yeah, no, we love talking with Danielle, and it's our second annual games gift guide. We know that this is that time of year when you're getting ready to buy gifts for the holidays, and we just love hearing about new games from them. I mean, like selfishly, I want to hear about the new games.
I know.
And this was a really great interview because they focused on games that were all multi-generational, which I thought was really great. Games that we could play with kids and adults and grandparents, and games that we as adults wouldn't mind playing by ourselves, even that weren't solely kid games, which I thought was really fun. And they put some games in here that don't necessarily have an outward game schooling appearance, but I think have some really cool social emotional learning. So they put in some games that were like really good icebreakers to help families loosen up, especially when we haven't seen each other because of the pandemic, and now families are getting back together. Maybe you're having a Thanksgiving get together with a bunch of relatives that your kids don't know very well, and it might feel pretty awkward. Playing one of these fun, silly games might really
those
loosen
cousins,
things up.
Yeah, those cousins are suddenly 3 years older. Yeah.
Right. I mean, so there could be so they have some icebreaker type games. They have games where there's a lot of like, take that, where you're hurting other players and they're hurting you, and kids have to kind of learn to be okay with that. And I think that there's really good social emotional learning there too. And then there's games that do involve math and other things. So there's a wide variety here of generational games. And I really appreciated getting to talk with them. They're always, she's always a delight. I hadn't met her husband before, but he is also a delight.
Yeah, and you flew solo on this one.
I did.
Yeah.
The little one was not able to watch a movie as we had planned.
Yes.
And so we had to pivot.
Yep.
We're flexible. And
we had the solid, starting pitcher, and she went the full complete game. You didn't need the relief, Bumpkiss in the back throwing, wild thing. You didn't need Vaughn this time around. But anyway, let's hop into the interview. It was wonderful, and we hope you guys enjoyed as well. And this is Danielle and Chazz from Board Game Babies.
Hi, Danielle, Chazz. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Hello.
Well, it's so great to have you guys for our second annual game schooling gift guide. So you're like our go-to people for games because you seem to be in the pulse of what's fun and things we haven't heard of. And we've talked about everything that we play already on the podcast in our short bites. So we thought we would outsource again because we love talking to you.
We have a lot of games. I think we've like reviewed like maybe close to 200 maybe, and we still have, I just look at our shelves and I'm like, I have so many more I need to share. So this is a good opportunity for us to share some ones that I haven't put up reviews for on our Instagram yet, but like
it's fresh,
that we enjoy playing. And there are a couple of oldies but goodies in here too, so you don't have to like necessarily get the newest and greatest thing. You might even be able to find some of these used or resale or.
Yeah, we love it. And I'm here solo today. I'm missing my partner in crime. So Chazz, you're on deck for all dad jokes because I can't do that.
He's got it. He's got the dad jokes down.
Great. Okay, so we're getting ready. We're gearing up. We're feeling festive. We're getting ready for Black Friday shopping and all that great early shopping from supply chain challenges. I feel like I shop earlier and earlier every year. So what are we going to start with?
Okay. Well, usually when I come out in here, I talk about game schooling games because that's primarily a way we use games in our house. It's to teach and reinforce concepts. And this is a homeschooling podcast. So usually it's very, useful for people who are trying to teach their kids with games. But as the holidays are coming up and more people are going to be spending more time with their family in larger groups, family, gatherings, we wanted to share some of our favorite, what we would call family games. So we tried to pick games that we think grownups would play without kids, that are really approachable for like if you're having just like a get together with adults, but that are also great for kids to play too. So like we like games like that where it's not just a kids game. There's great kids games out there. There's nothing against them, but sometimes it's nice to pull out a game that you're like, I really would play this even if I wasn't playing it with a kid. Yes. And to be able to enjoy it with them.
Yeah, I think the term that dorky term we kind of use is like intergenerational. So
yeah, intergenerational. I like that.
As opposed to just like a kid's game where it's like really only fun for the kid and the parents are sort of surviving it.
Yes.
These are all like really fun for grownups, but really great for you to incorporate kids. And for us, we play primarily our 7 and 9-year-old are playing these with us, but we have our third child who's about to turn 6. And actually quite a few of these she can play too. So yeah, Chazz is with me tonight. He is actually our big like strategy gamer and plays a lot of these games with the kids regularly too. So while I'm the more game schooling focused one, he's like the more family game expert one. So he'll chime in on a lot of these and share some. And just because we're not sharing straight game schooling games doesn't mean there aren't like elements of learning that can happen in them. Not just the soft skills of gaming, of taking turns or learning how to cooperate, things like that. But also there are some things we'll point out if there's some good math or reading skills in them too. So we give you everything, all of the wonderful parts of games.
Yes, so excellent
games that we're going to share and kind of go back and forth. But and we broke them into categories to kind of make it easier. So if you're looking for a particular type of game, hopefully this will help you kind of narrow down even amongst these 10, because not trying to encourage everyone to go out and buy 10 new games necessarily. You may want to pick. Not saying you shouldn't either. You do what you do. You do what works for you, but wanted to make it approachable and attainable to pick something good from the list. So,
and I'd like to just say that if we base recommendations on our kids' ability to play games, I think our kids are pretty typical in what they can handle. In the big strategic board gaming community, you'll see a lot of like Facebook posts of, look, this is my kid playing hour 4 of a game of Twilight Imperium, and it's like
yeah,
5 years old. Our kids can't do that. Our kids are normal kids, I think, or as normal as kids get. And so if we say that we think this is good for a certain age, it's while we play a lot of games in our household, our kids play what I think are pretty normal games for their age.
Yeah, I think our age ranges are fairly accurate. Like you'll have kids who are more of the gamer, like our 7-year-old is our big gamer. So like he can play things that our 9-year-old can play easily that maybe she might not have played at 7, but generally I think all of these are fairly approachable. And so I'd say all these games fall into multiple categories. This isn't like the only category that the game falls in if we put it in that category, but we kind of tried to, like I said, lump them together. So the first few games we're going to talk about are ones that we think would play best at like a family gathering with multiple generations. These are like very, very approachable for new gamers, like as simple as the rules get, not overwhelming, takes, just a couple minutes to teach. Kids of mostly any age could play them with, not like a 3 or 4-year-old, but like 6 and up could play them.
With grandma and grandpa coming to Thanksgiving or Christmas. Okay.
Exactly. Because I feel like it's just a great way for families to bond. Like you're kind of sitting around, like, what do we do? And just sitting down and being able to play a game together is a great way to laugh, like build those shared experiences. But like, I know sometimes older generations are a little more hesitant in the games because they grew up only playing Candyland with their kids. So like, right. You know how we feel about Candyland. So they're like, oh, board games. No, we don't want to play board games. And then you bring out something that's really fun and they're turned on their head about what they think about board games. So like, these are great ones. If you're like, I want to like introduce some family members to something that they would be out of their comfort zone. So the first one, I think this is probably literally like maybe the easiest game we own, because if you can roll dice, you can play this game. It's called Mickey's Food Fight, which we're also huge Disney fans. So anything with a Disney IP on it is usually welcome in our home. But it's basically just a speed game. It takes literally no strategy, no skills. You're just rolling dice and then throwing food, like Mickey food items, like hot dogs and Mickey ice cream bars, and hamburgers from your tray to other people's trays, and trying to clear your plate as faster than anybody else. So you want to get a clear plate first. So you roll 3 dice and they tell you like which food you can move off your plate, how many of that item you can move off. So there's a number die, a food die, and then a directional die. So it's good to like, help kids sort of understand those things. But also, again, it's super easy. Like, I guess they would technically need to know right from left probably, but that's a great way to practice it. See, game schooling in the simplest game you have. So it's a great warm-up game. Like it would be even fun for like a game group to play in a warm-up game.
It's good if you need to burn some energy off your kids, because it's very frenetic and there's no turns.
Yeah, you're all simultaneously rolling. Everybody's rolling at the same time, and you're chucking things across the table. And like you think your tray is going to be empty, and then like 5 hot dogs appear on your tray, and you're like, so it's like really interactive and fun. The one thing I will say about it is that while any kid could play this game because it's so simple, I think the one thing to watch out is that kids sort of need to be at the same speed. Like it's kind of hard for a 6-year-old or a 5, she's 5 still, to keep up with our 2 older kids, because she's just not quite as fast at rolling the dice. So she'll end up with more on her tray. So a lot of times she's more of our helper. So even though she could totally understand the game, the rules are really simple. The one thing I would be cautious about is like if you're playing with someone who's like very, very fast and you have a slower person who's playing, they may not enjoy it as much. So that's just something to think about if you're going to choose this game, that everybody's ability to roll a die and sort of process those 3 pieces of information is somewhere in like the same time range. Like that makes sense. Like our 7 and 9-year-old play completely the same and they can totally play together. It's our like 5-year-old that kind of gets left a little bit behind. But again, she just plays with us typically. And if someone's never played a game in their life, they could play this game and learn it in 2 minutes, which is the nice thing. Like when you're trying to introduce people to games or have one at a family gathering, you don't want to spend an hour explaining. You've already lost everybody. Like
you certainly have.
You sit down and it takes 20 minutes, you've lost them. So I think this is just a super fun one that you could bring out on, holiday morning or after dinner or something, just to play. Or again, like to just warm yourselves up for a more strategic game.
Maybe a good like icebreaker type game too.
Exactly. Yeah. I think I know Ameritrash Talk, who's on Instagram, she has a game group for middle schoolers, and I think they play this one because it's just a great way to sort of get people engaging in gaming before they move on to something else. So
yeah, I have a group of Girl Scouts now because that's where we're at in our journey, and I think something like this they'd probably love. How many people can it play?
I think it's 5, right? It's each tray has a different character on it, so that you could end up with fights about the character, but it's 3 to 5 players. So there's like Mickey, Minnie. So, and we like it because it's like Mickey ice cream bars are our children's like all-time favorite treat, which basically banks rubs us when we go to Disney now because they just keep going up in price. But it's super fun to like see them on your board and to throw them at other people. So we do have like a house rule though. If you throw it off the table, you have to go get it. So that can really mess you up. So while you're throwing, you still got to kind of be in control, because if you
that's a good one, because I could see them just kind of throwing them here and there willy-nilly.
No, you got to have a couple of ground rules on the like, don't hit people in the face with you're really just throwing them on the table, but still like one could just shoot off the table. So if you threw it and it's off the table, you got to go get it, and that's going to cost you rolling time. So they're pretty good about making sure. And there's like a tray in the middle too that is one of the options of places you can end up like
almost like an LCR, right? But just a left, right, center game. But it's
yeah, exactly. Yes.
Basically, yes.
But it's cooler.
Because it's
great.
And I haven't played it, but I've heard there is a new one I think that just came out that's a Harry Potter version. But I think you're collecting versus getting, like, instead of trying to empty your tray, I think you're trying to collect certain items. But don't hold me to that because I literally just saw someone play it and I have not done the research. But
Okay, we're going to look it up.
If you're interested in this type of game and want to look at that, skin on it, I would check that one out too.
Great first pick. Thank you.
All right. So that's, I think, our easiest game, basic play. And then Chazz is going to talk about.
Okay. Yeah. So our next game that we're going to talk about is Super Mega Lucky Box. So this, if you're familiar with Silver and Gold,
you're familiar with Silver and Gold
because you turned us on to it. It's fabulous.
So, but it is either out of print or between printings. Kind of hard to come by now. And this is from the same designer, a different company. It's out of Game Right, so it's going to be great. But essentially, in this game, very much like Silver and Gold, instead of flipping over a card that has a polyomino on it, you're flipping over a card with a number on it, and then you're scratching out numbers on essentially multiple little bingo boards that you have. But as you fill in rows and columns, you get bonuses. So there's a strategy to picking which number you scratch off on your multiple boards that you can choose, and trying to get good combos and essentially run actually a little bit of an engine of efficiency. So I think that when you talk about trying to play a game like this intergenerationally, like you could pitch this to grandparents as like kind of, hey, if you can play bingo, you can handle this. It's quick, which is nice. Another thing that we try to avoid is games that overstay their welcome, because kids' attention spans just aren't the same. And we've had good times playing this. Both 7 and 9-year-old handle this one, do this one very well. And the 6-year-old, or the soon-to-be 6-year-old, she can play it mechanically. She just, isn't quite there figuring out like strategically which thing she's going to do. But she can get into it, and it's kind of like Silver and Gold. It's got that fun element of, which is sort of novel to people, of being able to use a dry erase marker and write on the cards, which I think some people kind of dig. It makes it so you're not, using a whole bunch of paper and, having little score sheets like flying around your house.
And one of the good things about this one too is that it plays up to 6 players, which is nice in like a family group. Like we're always
can it play 2 as well?
You can play solo.
Well, that's always exciting.
So yeah, it's 1 to 6 players. So that one I like for another family gathering, because again, finding games that you can play, more than 5 players, even more than 4, can be challenging.
Yeah, it certainly can. 6 is nice. How long does it play? 30 minutes?
Yeah, I think it's
under 30.
I think, yeah, it's always under 30. I'd say like 20 at the most, probably.
So is there some math involved with where you're scratching off numbers, or it's just the spatial trying to make patterns?
Yeah, it's just scratching the numbers off, and then you're not adding your spaces or anything like that. But depending on which card you put it on, like when you're doing Silver and Gold and you're laying the polyominoes, depending on where you choose to put it, you can help yourself bonus to get extra turns or whatever. That one.
Right, and as the kids try to grow in strategy, there's a limited number of each number in the deck, and so as things have come out, what is more likely to come out versus what isn't. But that's getting into a level of strategy that we don't really see with a 7 or a 9-year-old. But it's certainly something you can get into.
So yeah, we're like huge fans of Silver and Gold. I still, if I had to choose, part of my brain still likes Silver and Gold because I like that polyomino aspect of it. I think that kids don't always get the opportunity to think from a game schooling perspective. I still love Silver and Gold, but from what we've heard, I think when they're out of copies of Silver and Gold, they're not reprinting. That's what I've heard. So that could have changed.
That's terrible.
I know, it makes me so sad. So if you need a replacement and you can't get a hold of that, this would be our replacement choice.
All right, Super Mega Lucky Box.
I wish you could show it, because it's got like Schoolhouse Rock type looking.
Yeah. I saw it when it came out, and I was like, I wasn't sure, but it was Game Right, so I should have just been like, oh yeah. It's like Sleeping Queens 2 just came out, and I'm like, I guess I just need to buy it because it's
just buy it. If it's Game Right, basically, just buy it. You'll play it. You'll like it.
Yeah.
No, that's typical. I mean, yeah, I don't think we met a Game Right game. Even ones that people have said like, oh, we don't like somebody told me Abandoned All Artichokes wasn't good, and we love that.
I love Abandoned All Artichokes. It is the perfect intro deck builder for kids.
It's great. So
it doesn't get more basic than that one, right?
I know. But again, so basically I don't trust anybody. I just trust Game Right. They're putting out good things, and they are always, they were we've done donations of games in the past, and they were very generous last year donating games to Fostering Hope for foster kids, which was just put them even higher in my book. So we're
that's great to hear.
And speaking of companies that we like, have you guys played any Grandpa Beck's games?
You know, I think we gave my dad Skull King for Christmas last year, but I don't think we played any.
Skull King is a great one to play at family gatherings, but I don't think that one's approachable for kids. It is a great adult game. We play that like every time he goes to like a guy's like weekend, they play that like all weekend.
Yeah, I went to a guy's weekend where we were gonna play tons of big strategy games. We had all these grand plans, and we wound up playing Skull King for like an entire day.
Yeah.
Wow.
We wore my deck out.
But if you're looking for a Grandpa Beck's game that is approachable for kids, and like, I don't know what it says age 7, but our 5-year-old plays this game completely. Have you played Cover Your Assets?
No, I've heard of it, but
so when somebody like recommended this game, and I was like, oh no, you can't play that game with kids. Listen to the title. Like that is no. And like besides the innuendo on the title, there is absolutely nothing like inappropriate about the game. It's a really, really simple card game. Again, one that I think plays super well intergenerationally, plays pretty quickly. But basically what you're doing is you're making pairs in your own individual stack, and those are your assets. And then you're trying to steal assets from others, and then people are stealing from you, and then you can block them stealing, they can block you. So it's a lot of back and forth. Our 5 and 7-year-old love this game so much. Like this game comes off the shelf more than any other game, and they play it completely independently. I don't think they're always following the rules, because there is a 2-player variant where you're like supposed to put more cards out, and they kind of just steal from each other. So it doesn't play as well with 2 players, but it's so approachable for young kids, and it's so, I think, fun for grandparents to play with little kids. Like we took this one on vacation and played it with my parents and my sister and our kids. So 3 generations are playing the game. The thing, it is almost completely take that, because you're constantly stealing and being stolen from. And our kids don't typically like take that games. I think they're growing into them, and we think take that games are important to teach them like an emotional lesson. You know what I mean? It's like important to
not have things taken away.
Yeah, like you have to be flexible, and your plan may have to change. But this one, I don't think, even if your child has a problem with a take that game, I think because stealing is the name of the game, like everybody's doing it. So even if someone takes something from you, you're like, oh, I'm going to take that back. Like I just need to, once I get this card, I'm going to, like, it's happening so much that there's constant opportunity to steal, and being stolen from doesn't feel as bad. And there's not that element of like, I don't like take that when you've like built something and you're like, I built this beautiful, like unfair. We play without the take that, because I built my beautiful theme park and you're going to destroy it. Like that makes me upset. But in this case, it's like someone's just taking a couple of cards off your pile. So I don't think it's a deal breaker for someone who has family members who don't like take that, and could even be a good growth experience for them depending on the kid. But I just think this one is really, really fun. Like it's one of our top play game for our kids. Our kids are, constantly pulling it off shelf. But again, a group of grownups could play it. A game group could play it, because it takes just a few minutes to learn. And a lot of Grandpa Beck's games, I think almost all of them, include like elements to let you sort of scale it, make it a little more complicated, or make it easier if you're playing with kids or if you're playing with just adults. So we like a lot of the games, but this one I think is probably our favorite family game that we would play at what our first category is intergenerational family gathering games. So
how many does it play?
Up to 6.
Oh, that's good. So it's another big one.
Yeah,
comfortably up to 6. Because sometimes the boxes lie about how many people can play.
That's very true.
Like you can play 6, but you wish you weren't.
And I don't see why you couldn't play. Like it might get a little more chaotic if you played 7 or 8, but like there's nothing that would break the game if you had 7 and you wanted to play. It just may end the game quicker, because you're going to go through cards quicker, and you end the game when you can't make any more pairs and run out of cards. So like I really think you could play with 7 or even 8.
But yeah, and this game is stronger at higher
Yes.
player counts. So it's not, again, it's not one of those ones where it's like, well, you could play 6, but you kind of wish you were playing with 4. Like, you're going to be happy at 6 players with this game.
Like, I prefer it with 4 or more. So like, like you can play it with 2 or 3, but it definitely shines with bigger groups, which is why we also put it in our like family, gathering game category that was arbitrarily made up.
Yeah, we're gonna have to check that one out. That sounds really good.
Yeah, I think because you have a 6-year-old, and then how old is your youngest?
3, so she's still coming up.
But like, I feel like our 5-year-old has been playing it almost a year. So maybe even when she was like almost 5, she started playing it.
She also really enjoys being mean to people.
She loves stealing. She's like so good at it because she so aggressively steals. Like, it's kind of disturbing. And also
playing games.
But yes, they love, because like someone can steal from you, and then you like, if you play a card on top of it, you'll put like 3 cards down, and so they're like, no, you can't steal. Yes, I can. No, I can't. And then it's like, then you have this stack that's like a lot more valuable. So then other people are trying to steal that stack, because like once you're adding value to that like stack of assets, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Just play it. You'll love it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to check that one out. That sounds really good.
So then going kind of in the opposite direction. So we went like simplest, most basic games you could teach someone in a few minutes. These are, I wouldn't say they're complicated. I would still definitely, like, we're going to have a game night tomorrow night with some friends, and any of these I would pull out for like people who were like sort of newer to games or weren't ready for heavy strategy. But these are games that we think will like satisfy a strategy gamer, but also are approachable for kids and new gamers, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
you would play this and you'd be like, okay, this scratches the itch of like, I want to play something strategic, but I want my kids to be involved. So the first one, have you heard of Canvas?
No.
Oh, it's amazing. Okay, this is one of our favorite games. So it is really unique. Like, again, I wish we could show you the box, because the box is actually a painting.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Hang it on your wall if you want to. Like, it is made to slide in and out with like a hook.
That's great.
On the wall. So not that you would want to do that, but if you wanted to, you could do it. So you're playing as painters and you're competing to make the best paintings. So what's really cool about them are you're collecting these art cards, and they're clear plastic cards, except they each have like a different artistic element on them. So they might have like a child floating through the air on a moon, or like a tree, or I don't know, like a penguin. I don't think there's penguin. They're like pretty artistic. There might be a penguin. They're pretty like, they look artistic.
Are they like Dixit artistic or just like regular artistic?
So they're clear primarily, but like the painting, the drawing on it is like a just like one artistic element, and then you layer them together.
Oh, interesting.
And you make a painting. And so like they'll 3 cards.
I see. Use them all together, stacking them.
We'll layer together to make one painting, and then you put them on a backdrop.
Oh, that is very neat.
So that is really cool. Like, just the cards themselves are beautiful. They're really fun to look at. They all have like, a name on the bottom. So you might put it together and have like childhood dread is the name of your picture, like when you make it. So it's kind of fun to like make your paintings and then share them. Like, I have made a whimsical existence or something is like the one you've made. And so the kids get a kick out of like presenting their card. Anyway, so how you play the game though, you collect cards, you are stacking them together, and you have to some degree strategically stack them, because you're trying to have a set of icons available at the bottom that show you how you can score your painting. So everybody shares a set of goals that they're trying to satisfy. Like, there's group goals out on the table, and you're trying to make your painting to meet those group goals. And you can tell if you've met those group goals by the icons that are at the bottom of the painting. But when you layer your cards, you might cover up an icon that you didn't want to be covered or you need. So you have to like strategically figure, okay, which one's on top, which one's on the bottom? Do I want to use this one in a different painting instead? And then once players have created and scored 3 paintings, the game ends. So everybody gets to make their 3 paintings, which is also a nice part of the game. You're not like trying to make them as fast as you can. Like there's a real like balance of everybody gets to play and have their creations. So I think this is one of those ones, even where you lose, you're like, I made this beautiful gallery of these 3 paintings. So you don't like feel sad if you've lost, because I think for kids, that's always a good element to it. Cause some kids handle losing not as well as other, they want to win. And this one is one of those ones where you like are just so pleased with the outcome that you almost don't even care who won, but you get like little ribbon tokens for each painting that have the scores. Or that like help you score. So it's just the components are amazing. Like nothing, like not, I don't want to say nothing because board games have insanely good components these days, but one of the higher quality, like one of the just well put together games. And there's lots of different, with the goals, you can change the variations of how you play. So there's simpler goals that we use for the kids, and we'll use those same goals a couple games in a row so that they kind of get familiar with it. And then as they've been playing the game more, we'll change them out for more complicated goals. Or
so are you drawing cards into your hand and then deciding how you're going to use them?
They're laid out on a mat. It's like a neoprene mat, right? Or what?
It's cloth. Yeah,
cloth mat.
So instead of a board, there's a cloth mat, and the elements, those clear plastic cards that contain painting elements and icons, are coming out from left to right. And you have a currency in the game called inspiration tokens that you can use to buy ones that are further down the line. And if you buy ones that are closer to the end of the line, you pick up the inspiration tokens that were used to buy them.
So like there's like, I think it's 5 or that. There's 5 art cards that are down. And like, if you take the first one, it's free. But if you want the second one, you have to put 1 inspiration token on it. If you want the third one, you have to put one on the second one on the third one. Or if you want the,
you have to decide like how badly do you want it.
Exactly. And then if you're the one, so then those inspiration tokens will build up on the art card. So when you take one of the cards, you get all the inspiration tokens that other people have put on the card. And that's how you get your inspiration tokens back. So again, this one is one I think does play better with like, there is a variant that you can use to play 2 players because you have to distribute the inspiration tokens more, but we play 4 pretty much exclusively, and that is the best. I think that's a really good player range, but it does play solo and it can play up to 5 players, which again, finding a 5-player game, nice option. The one thing that
takes about 30 minutes.
Yeah, I would say at the most probably. But the one thing that's weird about this game to me is that it says it's age 14 plus on the box. And I've got to believe that's because they didn't want to go through the like process of making their components safe for kids. Like there's cooking hazards and you have to go through like,
well, it doesn't even necessarily mean that the components aren't safe for children younger than that. It means they didn't want to necessarily, it's possible they just didn't want to take the time to go through the process or the cost and just said 14 plus, because that's kind of your max. Otherwise, if you want to go lower than that, you have to go through a process when you're making a game of having basically the government say, yes, you can say this is good for 9+ based on choking hazard and stuff like that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I don't know where they got that number 14+, because I do think it's very appropriate for kids half that age.
Yeah. So someone might look at this game and say, oh, I looked it up on BGG and it says 14+. That is completely like, do not be scared of this game because of that. Like our 7 and 9-year-old play completely independently, even to the point where they can like figure out the strategy of it. And our 5-year-old plays with like a little bit of like, do you want to put that one underneath so you can score for this? And honestly, sometimes she just wants to make the paintings. They don't even care about the scoring. They just want to make the one they want. So like, if they want to do that, that's fine. Like, well, it's part of the process of playing. But it is one of the prettiest and like most unique games I think we have. And we have our oldest is really into art too. So like, this was a no-brainer for us to get, but we were just very surprised how much we liked it and how good it was for like someone who wanted to play a strategy game too.
Yeah, I'll say as like the sort of board game hobbyist in this talk.
Yeah, he is like,
for me, this is like one of the great examples of like innovation in the hobby coming into the family gaming realm. Just with these clear cards and putting cards together to make something. It's probably of the games that we're going to talk about, it's one of the ones I'm the most enthusiastic about because I think it's something where you get it and it's beautiful. It's using its components absolutely perfectly. And you'll play it and be like, well, I have never seen anything like that before.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
it's nice to do something different.
Yeah, everything, every like thing is really laid out really well in the rules. Like they've just really thought through everything. The variations you can play. It's so good. So
chef's kiss.
Yeah, that one's high on our list.
Right.
So then we have this is an oldie, but a goodie.
Well, yeah, olden hobby board gaming years. This is Karuba.
Yeah, I couldn't do a podcast with you without putting a hobby game on there.
We have had our eye on Karuba for a long time, but we don't have that one.
A lot of hobby games are more in the kid game realm, so this is one that's definitely a family game or adults only too.
Yeah, actually, in the board gaming club that I belong to in our city, you'll see like a table full of grown folks playing this one. So this is Karuba. This is the 2016 Spiel des Jahres winner, and as we said, it's from Habbo, which is one of our favorite game companies. And what you're doing in this game is you're trying to guide your explorer from their starting spot to a temple to collect a treasure, and the first person to get to the temple of a given color gets to take the most valuable treasure. So there's a speed element to it. The trick of it is everybody's playing on their own identical board. So you know where your explorers start and you know where the temples are, and then tiles are coming out that you use to construct your paths. The tiles come out in the same order for everybody. So everybody's got the same set of tiles they're working with, and they've been randomized, but they're coming out in the same order.
So like number 13 will come up, everybody plays tile 13. So it's the exact same tile, looks exactly the same, but the way you play it will look completely different than the person next to you.
Exactly. So where you place the tile and how you use it is completely up to you. And so it's kind of an efficiency path building game. One of the stronger elements of it is that while it is competitive, like there's definitely like you're trying to beat your opponents, there's really nothing you can do to hurt them. You're simply working on trying to get your efficiency puzzle to be kind of mapped out better than anybody else's.
I think the theme is really like fun for kids too, like collecting treasure. Like as you move your explorer along the path, they'll collect like little diamonds, little gold pieces. The one thing I struggle with this game is that the setup, like laying out all the tiles in numerical order, takes a little bit of time, and then like someone is usually the caller. So what we've done is used an app that actually does decides what tile is next. So like that takes the pressure off one person from having to do that job. So that kind of solved that problem for us. And it has like really fun background music of like, what you'd hear at Disney and like Adventureland as you're walking around, to like, just makes it like a fun dynamic when we play. We always have the app going to like tell us what tile to play next, and it plays the music in the background. So that's a fun little like aspect of that is not part of the game, but it's fun. I think it's fun when there's things that go with the game. Like we have Wingspan, and it has like a bird calling app, so you can like scan the card and hear what the bird call sounds like.
Oh man, we're gonna have to get that. We have Wingspan as well, and I didn't know about that.
Yeah. Great for homeschool, like for educational stuff.
Yeah. So this is kind of cool. It's nice. Karuba's got this, no interaction, which I think after you've played a couple like Take That games or other games, sometimes it's nice to be like, I'm just working on my own little plot here.
Yeah.
No one affects me.
Yes. This is a cerebral, kind of sit there, and as the tiles come out, think about how you want to use them. If a kid needs or a family, you just want to have it be a little bit quieter, a little bit more chill. I think it's quite fun. And again, the real fun of it comes from the excellent components and the way you're building a little jungle. And I think if you have the free app going, playing again, some background sort of generic jungle sounds, kind of becomes a little bit of an immersive thing. But again, not as amped up as say Mickey and Friends Food Fight, which is basically like a, Girl Scout icebreaker turned into a board game.
Our 7-year-old plays this one fine. Our 5-year-old has not played it though. I think it would just be a little bit too much.
Yeah.
And how many players does it take?
It is
2 to
4. So kind of in your basic range.
Great. And maybe half hour?
Yeah, I'd say half hour.
Half hour tops.
So, and there's multiple treasures that you're going for, right? That's my memory. There's multiple temples to try to work towards.
Yeah, there's multiple temples to get to, and whoever gets to that temple first gets the highest like number of points. So you can be going after different temples and something like ultimately you're trying to get to all of them, but typically there's at least one you're going to miss. So it's just however you decide to strategize, which again, I think is kind of, at first, I feel like this is one of those ones where you play at first where you're like hiding your board because you don't want like someone to copy you. But then after you've played a few tiles, like everybody's just doing their own thing. Like,
right. It's too different at that point.
Yeah. So it's a good one. I feel like you could probably find it for resale since it's a couple years old at this point.
Yeah, it's one that's pretty popular though. You don't find it for real sale that often.
I was gonna say probably people don't let go of it because it does like again meet that like strategy gamer itch, but like could totally teach it to someone and start playing it within 5 to 10 minutes, which is a really valuable thing when you want to incorporate family or kids into something. Like if we try to spend 40 minutes explaining a game to our kids, we've lost them. That's like their full attention span. That's all the attention span they have for the entire gaming experience.
Or the grandparents.
Yeah. So we can't,
right.
We've got to have like, this takes us 5 minutes to explain and 20 to 30 minutes to play kind of is like the sweet spot for us when we're playing like a family game with kids. Maybe we can push it to 40, but generally we try to stick 30. And a lot of times too, it's like, we're trying to get them to bed and they're like, can we play a game? We're like, of course we're not going to say no, but you also have to go to bed. So this has got to be not an hour-long game. So the next one we have is Copenhagen. Again, not like a brand new game, but not I think it's only a couple of years old. I think we got it at Origins. But so Copenhagen is this really pretty polyomino tile game, which if you know me, I love. Oh, it's 2019. Okay.
It was the lost years. It feels like it was forever ago.
Right before I forgot all existence. So anyway, it's laying polyomino tiles to fill up a building, basically. So you're trying to build like you have like a building in front of you, and you're taking colored cards, and you're collecting. You're doing like a set collection of cards, and then you're laying down polyominoes to fill in horizontal lines and vertical lines. I just put those two words together. And then as you fill those columns and fill those rows, you are gaining like bonuses and scoring points that way. So it's pretty simple. To me, this one feels the most like Tetris because it is like this, it looks like a Tetris, it's the way it's an up and down building. It feels like you're putting Tetris pieces in, and it's just really beautifully designed, really pretty colors. So this is one, again, I think people would look and be like, oh, this is a game for adults, but our 7-year-old has been playing it, I think, since he was 5. And again, he is our gamer. So like, I don't know that I would say a 5-year-old could play this, but I think there are some 5-year-olds who play, but I'd say 7 is definitely approachable. The one nice thing about it is they have these power, like you basically have like power tiles that you can activate to play an additional card or to gather something, to give yourself a bonus or to do it's like a tool that you can use to enhance what you're trying to do without having to take another turn. And so when we started playing with him, we would just play with like one of those instead of playing with all of them. So it is another one where you can kind of like take a little bit out or add a little bit to it, depending on how you want to scale it to who you're playing with. But it's not that complicated. It's another one of those, like, you're pretty much focused on building your own thing and filling your own stuff, but you are racing the person next to you to some degree, because the faster you fill in your columns and rows, the more points you're going to score quicker. And then it's one that whoever gets to the score cap first wins. So it's not like everybody can fill in their whole building. It's you do have to like strategize what's going to score me the most points the fastest. Should I finish this vertical line or should I focus on the horizontal? But it's just really pretty. And I think it's one that I recommend if you want like a game that you want to play with your spouse on like a nice, little date night game, but that you also want to play with your 7, 8, 9 plus child. And
so it's got like some good spatial reasoning, right? Because you've got to figure out what, different, configurations of these polyominoes can fit.
Yeah, and like there's windows on the tile. So if you have a row with all windows, you get more points than if you like had put a row or put a tile in that you didn't line up the windows. So you have to like kind of figure out how am I going to maneuver this to fit in to give me the most points.
Yeah, this one is it's kind of about the weight of a ticket to ride. And in fact, it kind of borrowed one of the card drawing elements from Ticket to Ride. So it's very much kind of in that wheelhouse of like adults can get a bunch out of it, but kids can definitely approach it. Except instead of laying out trains where so you're thinking about how are you going to make your quickest path from one place to another, or your path that's going to incorporate a lot of different places like Ticket to Ride. This one is the Ticket to Ride card drawing element mashed up with Tetris polyomino placement. And so, but it's right about in that wheelhouse, about the same length too. Takes about half an hour to play. And again, some good scalability by being able to strip out some of the elements that might appeal to your more strategic gamers to just make it so that there's less for kids who are going to play to think about without actually removing any of the competitiveness of the game.
That's really great. So how many does it play?
It is 2 to 4.
Okay, great.
I feel like the strategy ones we're sharing are exactly what a strategy game would be, which is 2 to 4 players, like those ones that play really quick and are easy to learn that we talked about first are the ones that play to 6 players a lot because they're meant for like a more dynamic group. And this is definitely more like your normal sort of count. So I'm gonna let you talk about the last one because I haven't actually ever played this game. This is why he's here because this is another oldie, very old.
So yeah, we were trying
maybe older than us.
No, we were trying to. Well, it might depends on what month it came out because it actually came out the year we were born.
Wow!
Survive, Escape from Atlantis. So this is
still for sale.
It is, yeah. It's been reprinted many times
because it's that good.
It's currently available. The expansions for it aren't, much to my chagrin, but the base game, which is all you need, is currently available. 2 to 4 players. I would recommend 3 or 4. I think 2 would be very difficult. And so in this game, you're basically trying to get all of your little people off of a sinking island. The center of the board is an island that's sinking. And the way it's sinking is by each player consecutively drawing tiles off the island and causing it to fall into the ocean. And when you draw the tile, on the back of it is something that tells you what you need to do, whether it's move a shark or move a kraken or move a whale or place a new shark, kraken, or whale. And so these sea creatures are running around and they're basically gobbling up your explorers who you're trying to get to safety by getting them from the island to the mainland, which is the outside of the board, essentially. So when you play, you have the opportunity to move your people either on land, on boats, or swimming in the ocean. And then you draw a tile that tells you what to do. And then you roll a die that lets you move sea creatures, essentially.
Interesting.
It is definitely a classic. The one thing I will warn, strong cutthroat element.
Somebody's got to get eaten. So
all the games that we're talking about here, this is definitely the one where you have to build some emotional resiliency going into it or playing it. However, because it's so dynamic, there's so much going on and there's so much opportunity to, if somebody gets you, you're definitely going to be able to get them back. And there are ways to mitigate your risk by putting your people with other people's explorers so they can't, just attack you willy-nilly. Despite the fact that I'll be very honest, there's been some friction. There's been some friction, with the kids playing this game. It's one of the ones they ask for the most because I think they get that sense of like, okay, 3 of my people got their boat capsized and got eaten by a kraken, but next time I won't do that and I'll come up with some better way to handle it.
So this one we held off playing with them for a while. Like he's had this game for at least a year and we just sort of didn't bring it out because we weren't sure our kids were ready for the take that element of it. And so we really didn't start playing until they were over 7 and 9, like they're 7.5 and 9.5. So so this one is probably like a little bit on the higher age range of the ones we're sharing, maybe because of that needing to be mature enough to
handle your Explorer being eaten.
But I mean, there's a reason that, you know, every child psychologist has a copy of the game Sorry in their office. You know, there is an importance to learning that, and this is a fun way. It is just a fun way to do it.
A non-violent way to attack your siblings.
I like this. So your kids are feeling a little aggression. You're like, all right, we're getting out. Escape from Atlantis. Everybody calm down.
But I feel like a lot of people, like if people are listening to this, I guarantee there's people who are like, I played that when I was a kid, because I feel like it pops up a lot. Like people will like bring out they go to their grandparents' house and they find their copy and they play and they're like, remember how good it was. So
we had a game when I was a kid called Lost Treasure, and you had you were like a diver for treasure, and you press these buttons and you would go down, 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 and you would maybe hit treasure or not. And then you would be running out of oxygen. So you'd be like, okay, I'll just go one more. I'll dive one more. And you had a grid. You could like pick numbers, which square you're going to dive in before you run out of air and die. And that was really fun. You get your treasure and you have to go away. And I remember that the tension of it being very exciting, and sounds like this one too. There's a tension element, like, you know, you don't know if you're going to be okay. And that's kind of an exciting element in the game.
Yeah, it definitely brings a significant amount of tension for, again, a pretty quick little 45-minute game. Really nice, like table presence. You set it up and the kids are looking at it like, oh, there's this island with all of our explorers all over it. What's going to happen? And you start saying, well, you're going to take the tiles and the island's disappearing.
And this one's also 2 to 4 players. So didn't realize that when I clumped them together that we had, you know, inadvertently sort of divided them by player count in a way too. So that's all the ones for our strategy games that are approachable for new gamers and or children. Will say generally 7 and up, but take that with a grain of salt. There will be 5-year-olds who can play some of these games, no problem. There'll be 9-year-olds who will not want anything destroyed and cannot play survive or whatever. But
we're going for some social emotional learning today, not just
that's a big part of that's what I was saying when I was saying soft skills too. You're learning how to lose, you're learning how to handle people attacking your stuff, because people are going to attack you. I mean, not like physically maybe, but people will hurt your feelings or take your stuff. Or
and while I don't believe in throwing games to your children on purpose all the time, man, listening to my kids cackle when they use a Kraken to destroy a boat and eat all my explorers, you know, kind of makes me happy.
I do find when we play take that games with kids, it does help when there's a little bit of like gang up on mommy or daddy. Like, you know, if we're playing with them like, independently, they couldn't play together because then someone would cry. But like, as long as we're there to be the like enemy, you know, the one that they gang up against, then generally that helps. Like if you're looking for a strategy to help your kids, you know, again, you shouldn't always throw the game or like, you know, not play to your level. You need to know your kids and you need to figure out like what that balance is for you. And some people it's never, and some people it's all the time. Do your thing. But I think if you want to sort of walk that line of helping them be able to play a little more take that, it's you play that take that where they take that against mommy and daddy more. You know, they
nice too for them to team up as well. You know, sometimes that's kind of cool.
It is so important. We have 4 kids. We want them to like be a unit. We want them to have sibling love and like feel like they're on a team. And I think that's another thing that games do for them. You know, like they're not always against each other. We play a lot of cooperative games, or they're up against mommy and daddy because they think it's funny to watch us lose and they get excited when they, you know, go against us. So we have one more category, and there's only 3 in this category, but these are games that we would suggest if you were itching for some game schooling still, but you don't want it to completely hit you over the head. Like one of these games, I was like, oh, we got to include this one because it has a lot of addition and subtraction. She's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you've played this game like 20 times. How do you not know that there's addition and subtraction? She's like, that's just not how I would think of this game. But like for me, I'm thinking of it like, this is great. So we'll get to that one. But do you want to share about Quirky Circus?
Sure. So Danielle hasn't had the opportunity to play this one with the kids yet, but a game that I've really enjoyed playing with them is called Quirky Circuits. And so what you're doing in this game is you are cooperatively trying to guide a robot through tasks on the board. And the board is actually a spiral bound book with about 20 different boards on it in it. So you just, once you've completed one, you go to the next page and they get steadily more and more difficult. And the way that you guide your robot through its tasks, which in the first few missions is just a Roomba that you're trying to get around sucking up dust bunnies without running into furniture. The way you move it around is by playing cards that you have in your hand that your partners can't see, that either tell the Roomba to go forward 1, forward 2, backward 1, backward 2, or turn. And when you play those cards, you put them face down, and all your partners know is if your card lets the Roomba move forward or backwards or turn. They can't tell what you've actually done exactly. They have to infer. And then when you're done playing cards that you think are useful, your partner can play some cards, and then you can play some more, and then you flip them all over and see what you programmed the robot to do. You're not allowed to communicate.
You're cooperatively.
It's cooperative. Yeah, you're trying to get, and so every time you do a hand, so you play out as many of your cards as you want, you flip them over and you see what you've made the robot do, the power meter goes down by 1, and the goal in the first few levels, for example, is to suck up all the dust bunnies before you run out of battery. Very, very clever little way to introduce the concept of programming. It's cooperative. So again, we've been talking about a lot of like, hey, be ready for some emotional struggles. This one, not so much. Just the hilarity that ensues when you accidentally make the robot just spin around in a circle instead of successfully completing the mission that you're supposed to. But really getting a sense of a basic idea of what programming language consists of, and then also making inferences about what your partners are doing with limited ability to communicate.
So it's like introduction to coding and nonverbal communication and how like important that is or can be.
Yeah.
So this is one. It's kind of similar to like it's by the same person as Stuffed Fables, right?
It's the same company that made Stuffed Fables.
Yeah. So you guys played or heard of Stuffed Fables?
No, we haven't. I've heard of it. I haven't played it.
It's another one of those like book games. So Stuffed Fables is our 7-year-old and Chazz's like father-son game that they play through. So like they've just ended up being the same way with this game, like unintentionally. It's just this is another one that the two of them just always sit down and play together. That's why I haven't played yet, because it's always like a daddy-son game, and I can't, mess that up. I'm not welcome in that game. No, I'm
so
sure
how do you
play, but
so how do you like non-verbally, because you're just putting down these cards and they can't see, so how do you kind of work together?
So when I play with my son, the first time we played was just total chaos because I didn't give him any guidance whatsoever. Again, you've got a hand of, in the case of a 2-player game, 5 cards that again are just basic directions: forward, backwards, or turn.
And you both have the same hand, right?
No.
Oh, you don't. Okay, I'm wrong. Don't listen.
You don't have the same cards. But on the back, and again, on the back of the card, it does indicate whether or not this card is a forward-backward movement or a turn card. So if you know that your goal is to get the robot, 2 spaces over and then make a left turn to get to the next dust bunny, you could look down at what your partner put down and make some inferences that, okay, they've probably moved forward 2 to get that dust bunny, and then they put down a turn card. Well, hopefully it's a turn to the left because that's where the next one is. You know what I mean? But then they stop putting down cards because they must not have had anything useful. So now I'll put down a couple, and then you see what happens. And that's just fun. In playing with my son, the first level we won barely because he didn't understand. The second level we played it and we lost. But then he kind of got the idea like, oh, okay, when you stop putting down cards because you didn't have anything useful, as opposed to just playing everything in your hand because you thought that's what you had to do. So there's a lot of learning that goes on, but it's really quick to set up, really quick to play. Your level doesn't go well, you just put all the things back on and go again.
And like, I don't think our 7-year-old would look at this game and be like, oh, this is an educational game. But like, there's definitely like a lot of, you know, with the coding aspect and the like trying to sort of infer what other people are putting down. There's a lot of educational value to it. So.
Yeah. And as you get deeper into the scenario book, you get into things that are more complicated than just move forward, move backward, left and right. It's not just that for an entire book of scenarios. There's like jumps and, you know, things that you can't run into and things that you need to run into in an order that you need to do things. So again, I really love the idea. I love games where it kind of grows. Like you start at one place, and as you play through it with the same kid or a couple of kids, you watch them kind of learn and pick up tricks. And I just think that's fun.
But this is one you said, we were talking about beforehand, our stack of games, and if we would use it at game night for adults only. And you said this one you probably wouldn't play with all adults. It is more like geared toward playing with a kid. Is that kind of what you were saying?
I would agree. I mean, but maybe that's just based on my taste in games. I mean, even if I was going to play something cooperative with grownups, this just probably wouldn't be what I would go with. Though, I mean, frankly, at the beginning of a game night, people are rolling in. It's kind of a funny way to sort of, again, see how poor we can be at inference and communication.
Kind of similar to like Magic Maze, where you're, you know, having to move around and you can't talk about it. Have you guys played Magic Maze?
No, I think we played Magic Labyrinth, but we haven't played Magic Maze.
So Magic Maze is a little bit similar. We have it, and you're like in a mall, and each person can only move one way. Like I'm the only one that can move anyone forward, and somebody's the only one that can turn people or whatever. And so, you know, it's like somebody will move, and then we're waiting because we need the other person to do the next step, take the next step in the plan. But we can't talk about it, and it's all timed.
Okay, we have not played it for sure.
So that's a great reference. Very similar, only everybody has all the abilities. It's just a matter of putting them out in an appropriate order, and rather than being timed, you have a set number of turns that you can take.
Yeah, that's cool. I bet that would be really fun.
Cool.
Great way to introduce, you know, beginning coding concepts.
Yeah, I think our son was into that, so we thought this was a good, you know, way to take it off the screen a little bit too. You know, like we like him doing the screen stuff too, but it's like let's do this analog. Not that, I mean, when you're coding, it is by definition typically digital, but still. I'm
sure you could also have a kid who could, you know, early on, even solo, just put the cards out to get the robot to the right place, right? You know, so just like by themselves. As an activity.
Yeah, that'd be great.
You
for
absolutely
like a solo.
could. That actually would have been a good way to teach him, as opposed to failing their second level.
Good tip.
No harm, no foul.
Just totally like changed how everyone will play this game when they start out.
Well, I was just thinking about it because we have robot turtles, which is, you know, it's lower, and they kind of, but our daughter will put her whole sequence there, and then she's like running through in her brain, like, okay, is this going to do everything I want it to do? And this is neat because it adds the element where you're playing together and you can't talk, but definitely on those higher levels, you could do this as a solo exercise, which is kind of cool.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So then our second to last game, you may know this game as a different game. It is Toy Story Obstacles and Adventures. It is literally, you guys have shared Hogwarts Battle, right?
Yes, we love Hogwarts Battle.
We love Hogwarts Battle too. This is a complete just reskin of Hogwarts Battle with Toy Story theme.
Okay. So cooperative
deck building game where you're trying to get the toys through their adventure.
Does it go through levels where you're going to progressively open new cards?
Exactly the same as
so it
starts out simpler, it gets more complicated, you add in new characters. I think it's based on all the movies and then a couple of the shorts. Is Toy Story 4 in it? I think it might have come out before Toy Story 4.
No, Toy Story 4.
Yeah, so it's Toy Story 1 through 3 and then some of the shorts. So you're using the different characters. So I think it's slightly different for, like, if somebody played this, they're like, that's not exactly the same as Hogwarts Battle, because there is just like some slight variations, because you have like the military, what are they called? The army men, you know, like, so they like have things that they're like, the army men are like the spells of Hogwarts Battle. So it just changes it like slightly. But if you can play Hogwarts Battle, you can play Toy Story Obstacles and Adventures. The thing I like about this, and the reason I wanted to share it, was because I don't think a lot of people know this one exists. I think a lot of people know, especially if they listen to your podcast and have heard you share about Hogwarts Battle. I think people don't realize this one is out there, and we love Hogwarts Battle. It's one of our kids' favorite 7 to 9-year-old favorite games. But our problem is we have not finished the books, and we will only let them play as far as they've read.
Yes,
so
same problem.
Very stuck for a long time at one particular game, which we don't have that same issue with the Toy Story version because they've seen all the movies. It doesn't spoil things. They're not like, who's this character? What are they doing? You know, like that. And if we pull out something in Harry Potter, they
yeah, we have to stop. She's like, well, can I play level 4? And I'm like, no, because we haven't read the 4th book yet. So no, you can't.
So we ran into the same thing. We're like, okay, well, even though it's like basically the same game, we're getting Toy Story's Obstacle Adventures because we know it's going to be another year at least before we finish. We're on like book 5, I think. So it's going to be. So
it's the same mechanic. You've got like a location that's filling up. You've got bad guys. You're buying cards that will help you in this deck builder, and then you're all working together. You got health.
Yep, exactly the same.
It is the same game.
Okay, so yeah, for folks who haven't played that, that's kind of a standard deck builder. So you're going to draw a hand of 5, play from that hand, and then you'll discard and draw a new hand of 5, and you're going to keep cycling that discard pile over and over. But as you acquire new items to go into your deck and make it better, and you're battling bad guys.
Yep, and the thing points. I love both of these Hogwarts Battle and this one. I love watching our kids do the combos. Like they always play the same characters. So they start to get to know like what special power they have or like what they want to have in their deck that will like combo well with their initial deck. And I just think watching them, all that stuff click is so fun. And so I like that we've been able to get into the more complicated, because that one does get more complicated as you go on too. So like if you want to be able to move in that level and you haven't read all the books. And I think there are also people who don't read Harry Potter. It's just not their thing. But I think this is a really good first deck builder and a great way to introduce deck building in a really fun theme, both of them. But if you're not a Harry Potter fan for whatever reason, this is a good alternative. So you're not completely left out of what I think is a really excellent game. And I think you guys agree that.
Yeah, it really is. So what do you think is the age? I mean, I know my, almost 7-year-old is playing it. I feel like that's kind of the right age.
Yeah, we started right when our son turned 7. Like we got it for Christmas, I want to say last year, and he turned 7 in January. So like right when he turned 7, he started playing. So there is reading to it though. So I think some of that is dependent on their reading level, but there's a lot of repetition in the reading. So
yes,
this is why I kind of put it in the game schooling one, because I do feel like it really helps if you're playing it with a 7-year-old. It does help them like sneakily practice their reading.
Oh, that's totally why I play it with my daughter.
They're looking at all the cards that are out in like the market or whatever and reading what they do and like reading what their cards do. And then so I like games that new readers are playing that include cards that have a little bit of text on them because they're not overwhelming. There's generally repetition, and it's just a great way to help them like practice reading in a non-threatening, super fun way.
Yeah, I agree. Our daughter doesn't even, I think she doesn't even think it's reading. I mean, she's just like, oh yeah, this is the cards. And there's also what I like about some of the cards is they'll say like, oh, you can have 2 hearts or you can have 1 money. And so you have to make some decisions. And so she's like adding in her head, like, well, how many do I need? Because I want to purchase that card over there. Or, so there's some decision making too that has to happen, which I think
a little bit of game schooling, but not like hit you over the head. Like you never pull out this game and be like, this is a, I'm teaching place value with this game or whatever. Right. It's like, this is it's just a super fun family game where you're incorporating a little bit of sneaky learning.
Yeah. Great choice. We'll have to check that out.
And again, it does bring in that element of like, you get a lot of bang for your buck with it because it's quite challenging. It's quite easy to lose, which means you're going to come back for more. And again, like Hogwarts Battle and like Quirky Circuits, like other games that we've talked about, it's a game that kind of grows your kiddos into it. You start at the most rudimentary level and add rules every single time you play. And so you can watch the kids become more facile, more complicated strategies and thought processes. And that's fun too.
Yeah, I like the progressive element that you get an initial deck of cards, and then assuming you've won that game, you get to open the next deck, and then it's got, a few extra things or new rules. It's a fun dynamic, but I agree with you. We have the problem with Harry Potter having to stop.
So this is this is a good one. If you're not gonna read all the Harry Potter books by the time your kid is 7, then think about starting with Toy Story, and then it'll be exciting because they'll know how to play Hogwarts Battle, and then it'll be a whole new fun theme for them. So that's why I wanted to share that one. I knew you had done Hogwarts Battle, but I feel like this is not known. Like, even a lot of people who are like very involved in the gaming community, when they see this game, they're like, wait a second, is that just the same game in a different, like, they just don't know it exists. So just another option out there. And then the last game we're going to share is, I don't think is it that old? It's another, I would say maybe older, but good. Not as old as Survive,
2011.
But like, yeah, 2011. So this one we see all the time resale. I don't know why, because it's a great game. I don't know why people are selling it. They must just move on to something more complicated or whatever. But have you played King of Tokyo?
We have King of Tokyo. We really like it.
Was I not?
But share it for our listeners, because we haven't actually talked about it on the podcast.
Well, instead we'll talk about King of New York, which is literally the exact same game. No, I'm just kidding.
No,
we'll talk about King of Tokyo.
We won't tell all the details of play. So
no. Go for it. We haven't talked about it, so I think it's a good one.
We'll just give like the very simple overview and why it's a game schooling game, and then you can talk about it.
Okay. Well, so King of Tokyo is a King of the Hill style game where you're basically playing as kaiju and essentially beating each other up in a slugfest to see who can be in control of Tokyo the longest and accrue victory points that way. But it uses a very familiar mechanism, which I think is very helpful when you're trying to introduce either young or intergenerational gaming, is that it's essentially Yahtzee. It's a glorified version of Yahtzee. You have a handful of dice, you roll them, you pick which ones you like the values of, you roll them again, you roll the ones you didn't like, you take some, pick what, basically. So yeah, Yahtzee. I'm explaining a game that literally everybody knows, and I apologize.
Yahtzee with stomps.
Yeah, when we played it at a game night, and some people had never played, and I just said, well, imagine Yahtzee with kaiju, and they were like, what?
Yeah, so we played with all adults, but this is probably one of our 7-year-old's favorite games, and he's been playing since he was 6. I don't know if your daughter plays it too, but
she played it once. We'll have to get it out again, because it is a really fun game. We really enjoy it.
Well, yeah, so it plays 2 to 6. You're definitely going to have probably more fun at higher player counts. I think 4 to 6 would probably be the sweet spot for this game. The box says 8+. I would say that you probably have to really be able to read in order to get the most out of it.
Right, because there's some like power-up cards you can get, and those have quite a bit of text on them.
They are,
and non-repetitive text.
3 out at a time, so like you could read them for your
true.
Like, when we started, I don't think he could read those when he was 6. I think we were reading him to him and telling him what they did, because especially we played a lot with him 2-player at 6 too. So it was like in a 2-player game, those cards aren't moving as quickly. You're not buying them as often, so they're out there for a while. So it's not like you had to read something new on every turn. But yeah, when we played with 6 people in a game night, those were going a lot faster. So like it would be more helpful to read yourself. But
yeah, so we have a really good time, me and the kids, playing this game. We're chucking big chunky dice and trying to make some strategic decisions and imagining your kaiju stomping the other players' monsters into oblivion. And then Danielle comes and tells me, she's like, oh, this is one of my favorite game schooling games. And I'm like, game schooling?
He's like, what are you talking about?
There's no game schooling in this game. It's kaiju.
But there's so you have hit points and you have health and then you have health, which you're getting taken away and then adding to. So that is constant adding and subtraction. And then you're trying to score points, just like victory point type things. Then you're constantly adding, and I think you're subtracting those too. Are you just adding those? I think you're just no, I'm trying to remember. Anyway, between
I think it's just addition.
I think that one's just addition, but the health is up and down. So
yes, well, and there's a lot of decisions to be made, right? There's a lot of probability in rolling, and you're kind of taking the risk. If you're going to roll and you're going to be able to make enough of the victory points together or enough of the stomps to, attack whoever's in Tokyo. And you have to make a decision too. In the game, you can either be outside of Tokyo or you can try to take control of Tokyo, in which you gain more victory points, but you're more vulnerable because everybody attacks.
And you can't gain health when you're in Tokyo, so you cannot add to your health. So you leave yourself.
It's a really fun game. It always makes us want to watch Pacific Rim when we're done playing. One of our favorites. So we always lots of start the countdown.
I just remember when we first played this with our six, when he first started playing, I was like, this is a really good sneaky game, stealing game, because he just thinks it's so fun with the monsters. Like, it's just such a great theme, especially for like a young boy.
And while there is a lot of direct kind of like beating down on your opponents, you can protect yourself. You can leave Tokyo, which makes you essentially somebody that can only be attacked by the person in Tokyo. So you can heal your player up. And kind of like one thing I noticed just as we were doing this talk with the games, where we've had caveats about take that, is that one thing I realized is that with kids, I think that the way to help them tolerate that is if you play a game where that's just literally what the entire game is.
So right. It's not like they're being singled out. Right. It's like, oh, I'm being picked on. It's like, well, no, the whole game is we beating up on each other. That's what this game is about.
Yeah.
So not like a brand new straight off the presses game, but one that we think has value and, again, good if you're a savvy shopper and want to pick up a used copy.
Yeah, I think we got this one used too, and it's a really great game. Really good with 4. I mean, it's quite fun with 4.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. Again, we had fun playing it with our game night with adults. Like, so it's one that can.
Yeah, it's one we pull out every once in a while. Everybody's like, "Oh yeah, King of Tokyo, let's do that." Yeah, it's a fun one. I think it's a good game schooling one too, because there are decisions to be made, but none of them are too complex, right? There's not a lot of decisions you can make. You're trying to figure out what dice to keep, what dice to continue to roll, whether you want to go in or out of Tokyo. I mean, there's not like it's not high strategy.
No, yeah.
And it plays pretty fast too, maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'd say 20.
Yeah, so it's pretty short. It only plays. Did you say it played up to 6?
Yes, we played it with 6.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we haven't played it with that many people, but that's good to know. It's good to have these higher count games.
Yep. Yeah. So that one, I mean, some grandma and grandpas might want to play it, but we didn't put it in that category.
My grandma's like a Yahtzee demon, so she could totally play this game.
Yeah.
So it's that's what I'm saying. I think it's very familiar element.
Yeah, we'll play games like my mother-in-law's like big with Racco, and so we'll play a game with her that is like it's something different, and we'll be like, and she'll be a little leery, be like, oh, it's like Racco. She'll be like, oh, I got this, like, and they get kind of into it because she's like, oh, I totally get that mechanism, because you see some of those old mechanics thread their way into new games, which I think is really cool.
Yeah,
we might have done the exact same thing with Skull King and Pinnacle.
Yeah, my family's really into Pinnacle, and we're like, okay, we got a trick-taking game for you. It's not like that similar, but it was enough to pique their interest to play, and then they liked it. So
yeah, somebody that we knew like spades a lot, like trick taking, and we were like, oh well, here's what was it? The Quest for Planet 9, the crew. Yeah, we were like, yeah, this is just a trick taking game, and they're like, there's rockets in here. We're like, it's fine. It's a trick taking game. It'll be all right.
Just say trick taking. It's the same thing. It's fine.
Great. Well, that's a great list. Thank you so much for giving us this great. I mean, I'm just like adding to my Amazon list as we were talking.
Good Matt's not here, so he doesn't.
That's right. He doesn't. What he doesn't know, he's going to hear about it when he edits this.
But
great. And so then, tell us a little bit about Board Game Babies before we go, and some of the work that you're doing, wish lists and things for kiddos.
I'm primarily on Instagram. I have a blog. It's sort of been a little outdated, but it's there. It's got some of my reviews, but mostly I try to keep Instagram current. And one of the things that has been important to us is kind of getting games into the hands of kids who wouldn't maybe normally have access to some of these games. Like maybe they have literally only seen Candyland and Sorry, and we can open up a new world of games. And particularly, I'm passionate about the game schooling aspect of it too. So we work usually with 2 nonprofits that we either donate games to or have worked with, like I said, Game Right donated games last year to Fostering Hope. And then the other way we get games to them is by, I just have in my links on my Instagram, a link to wish lists that send the games directly to the nonprofit. It doesn't come into my hands at all. It literally is sending it to the address there. And one of the nonprofits is Grants to Classrooms, which gives school supplies to kids at low-income schools. But one of the things that we think is great for teachers to have in their classroom are games. Sometimes they're just playing them indoor recess, but sometimes teachers are using them in small groups or having a volunteer come in, or if like a specialist comes in and works with a small group of kids, or make it a station depending on what the game is. Having access to some of those really cool game schooling games. And you were saying you just got Code Crackers
yes
Kickstarter fulfillment, and they are one of the people that did like a match to Crayons to Classroom. So if you bought their game on Kickstarter, you could donate a game also to Crayons to Classroom. So that is one organization we work with, and there's a wish list that sends it straight to the warehouse, and it goes into the store for teachers, and teachers come and shop for things they want for their classroom. So teachers are picking out of the choices that are there, the game that they want. It's not just showing up at their door. They look at it and say like, okay, this is good for my kids, and they'll take it back to their classroom. And then the other organization we work with is Fostering Hope, and they work with foster families and providing them with opportunities. Sometimes it's like journey bags to send a kid who's going into foster home with just all the essentials that they would need coming, from their the situation they were in. And so usually around Christmas, they put together gifts for all of the kids in the foster families they serve. And so we've always tried to work with them to include a game in that gift bag, because we think that's just a great way for families to bond, a great way for them to just build those, again, shared experiences, have these like memories together. And so there is a wish list on my Instagram also that sends directly to them. It goes right to their warehouse and they distribute it. They have kids who are in group home living. So, we don't have traditional orphanages anymore, like back in a long time ago. So, but kids who don't, for whatever reason, can't be in a family placement for a period of time, can go live in a group home setting. And so they have a lot of games there, especially like during COVID when the kids couldn't go on outings or do things, they tried to provide games for them. So we've helped with that. And that's where the wish list goes to. So
yeah, well, those are really great causes. We'll put all of that links in the show notes for that and all the games that you talked about. And thank you. Thanks, Danielle. Thanks, Chazz. I don't know where Chazz went.
Oh, he's here.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming and supporting us and helping to share some great games with us and our listeners. We really appreciate it.
Hopefully everyone will just have some great family time together this season. And we think games are a great way to do that. So really,
they definitely are. Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time.
Happy homeschooling!